updated version on 1056.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Winter City Council meeting for Monday, July 17th, 2023. City of Winter will implement roll call.
Councilman Clay,
Here.
Councilman Frank,
Here.
Councilman Hockett,
Here.
Councilman Clunt,
Here.
Councilman Schramm,
Here.
Councilman Sprinkle.
Here.
If you would please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Council, having had time to review your packets, are there any conflict of interest on tonight's agendas?
Mr. Mayor, I believe there is a conflict of interest on ordinance 1056 with Austin.
Procedurally, at this point, Councilman Sprinkle, I would ask you to make a motion to disqualify a councilman for a perceived conflict. If there's a second, then that opens it up for discussion.
Okay,
And that is your motion?
that's my motion.
Is there a second?
I second.
Councilman Sprinkle has made a motion to introduce a conflict of interest with item number 1056, ordinance 1056, correct?
Old business
Yes.
number one.
Old business number one. That motion has been seconded by Councilman Frank. The floor is open to comments, questions. Councilman Sprinkle, you have the floor to start.
I believe the reason for conflict is this was brought up. Actually, I was the one that was asked if it was legal to stack excuse me, to stack bales in city limits. After I found out it wasn't, or that it was illegal, then it was taken into respect that they were going to change the ordinance. And I believe the two ordinance people prior looked into it and decided to leave it alone. And now that you have a new one on that ordinance committee, which would be Austin, it's back on our deal again. I personally would like to know why this is, what the city is going to benefit from it.
This is not in regards to this. This is in regards to the conflict.
He is employed by this person, and I believe the conflict is there.
Councilman Frank.
I agree with what Councilman Sprinkle said. He's employed by the person that would benefit from this, therefore he then in turn benefits from this. Therefore making it a conflict of interest.
Other comment, council. Councilman Clunt, obviously.
My employer may benefit from this, but I physically don't. And I believe the only conflict, you guys can vote whether this is a conflict or not, but a conflict of interest is when you benefit financially. And I am not.
Question.
Under the previous case that went to the South Dakota Supreme Court, if there's benefit for the employer of a council member, then the council member should be excused as having a conflict. That was under that Hannick versus City of Winter case.
Close to home.
It is.
So I have a question about.
Question.
In my packet, ordinance number 1057 is the one that is trying to change that old ordinance to allow stacking of hay in industrial zones. I just am confused.
The
over-
number was supposed to have been changed. It didn't get changed by the time it got to the packet, but that was my fault.
So
It-
so
What
the one
was,
labeled 57 is actually 56?
what was originally 1057 is now 1056. The original 1056 was referred back to committee, taken off the list, and so this moved into that next slot.
Sequential order thing.
Councilman Clay, do you have comment?
No, I was just just explaining further, there's a sequential order because we struck or sent back and keeping it in order. It's the same ordinance proposed, just different number.
Yeah.
Do you have comment?
Comment, yes. You know, we've always kind of been left up to us to determine whether we felt like we had a conflict with it also, but Paul's referring to the state law apparently, or case.
Well, it was a case.
Yeah, case, not
It
law.
was a case that came out of the city, but, you know, I would just say that the case made reference to the state statute that looks at these issues. And the state statute basically said that, number one, you start with, if the individual council person believes he or she has a conflict, they can just recuse themselves. If they feel they do not have a conflict, then if there are other members of the council that bring the motion which has come, then 2/3 of the council can make that decision to excuse him as a conflict. But it's up to the council as a body to make that decision. And I should say, by the way, when that comes to a vote, Austin, you will not be voting on that.
Councilman Schramm or Councilman Hockett, any comment?
I don't know if it is or not. To me, it's akin to, we got a man right there working for this man right there, so that everything he brings up at the council could possibly be him speaking. Is that what you're saying here? And if so, that's not where we want to go with this. I mean, he's his own man on the council. He works for this man. He might have some ideas that we don't like, bring some forward, and because he would take that side, then we discount what he says because he works for him. That wouldn't be right either. I mean, he's his own person. He's his own person. He should decide what a conflict of interest is, in my view. He's not benefiting from it. He wouldn't benefit from something that John might bring forward at some point in time in the future, but yet he's sitting here representing his employer. I don't think we want to go there. I think it opens up a whole big
If this
can of
or-
worms that
Hold on,
maybe, I don't
Councilman
think the
Clun.
city would want to, you know, do you feel right about that, Austin?
No.
Voting?
No cross
Oh,
table.
okay, sorry.
Councilman Schramm, any comment?
Oh, I don't do this very often, but doggone it, Joe, you make a valid point. He got elected by the people in his district to represent them.
Yes,
And the same was true with Mr. Clunt.
that's right.
So if they can't vote their way because their employer is involved in a discussion,
Or we feel it's their employer talking.
Council.
yeah, I
Anyway.
just, I don't know that conflict of interest is right. And I've said this before. I own stock in South Central Development Corporation. I'm still voting whether or not we fund them, because I don't have a conflict of interest in the money that Economic Development Corporation spends. And when we went, you were there, the Attorney General said that's not a
No.
conflict of interest.
No.
Correct.
That's right.
Now,
That's right.
but he didn't say about whether the guy was my boss, and I better vote the way he
But that
tells me to.
relationship is
But we
similar
all have that.
what
I've got
he
phone calls
has
now
with-
telling me to vote a certain way,
Yeah.
okay?
So-
I don't look at that as a conflict of interest. I look at that as I'm representing my constituents, and I better vote my conscience
Yes,
and hope that they like it.
yes.
So, that's,
And that's,
I personally don't think that Austin would have a conflict of interest here, but because I don't know how much money he makes from the profit or loss of the employer that he works for.
Rebuttal, one time around. Councilman Sprinkle.
I understand what you're saying. But the whole point is, this all came about, and I've never seen his boss come to the council and discuss the issue with any of us. Did he come to the committees, meetings?
Came to one.
Yes.
To answer your question, he was at a committee meeting, yes.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, these.
No. Rebuttal.
I would never bring anything to council that would directly benefit my employer. That would be something my employer would have to bring to another council member. That's a line, I still view it as a conflict because it's in a way benefiting a business I either work for. So I would then tell my employer who's sitting right there, tell him to go find another council member to bring this issue to, because I would not bring it to table whatsoever, whether it be committee or a full meeting.
Councilman Hockett,
Oh, that's.
Councilman Clay,
I'm ready. I'm fine.
Councilman Schramm,
And until we see evidence of a conflict of interest on the part of an employer that we work for, I mean, we all work for somebody. That's right.
Yes, sir.
Except Jeremy, he don't work. But- So, I think we need to be really careful, because in the case of Chase, does he not get to vote on pay the bills? Because his boss is included in that list? So I think we can really split hairs here, but until we actually see visible proof that it's a conflict. That's my opinion.
Councilman Clint.
No.
Last word. Point of information, please, one more time, address the council before, of case law.
I will. And let me clarify one thing. Under the case law that I referred to, what the Supreme Court said was that if the employer of an individual council member stands to benefit directly from an action of the council, that particular council member that would then be conflicted to participate. What I didn't clarify the first time around, and I hope I will do so now, if there's a question on what is the benefit to the employer, that's something that council, frankly, through your discussion or through inquiry, you can figure it out if there's enough of a conflict to make it matter, okay? The example that was used in the case that I'm referring to was specifically referring to a liquor license that was held in the business of that employer. And that particular council person was an employee also of that business. There, the Supreme Court said, too direct, too much of an interest. It was that employer's license that was part of the discussion, part of the issue that was in front of the city council. So in this case that we're talking about, the reality is, I don't think anybody questions the fact that Austin's employer might have some benefit. What you need to, as a council, look at is that the type and nature and extent of a benefit that it really constitutes a pecuniary benefit it sets that employer off from the rest of the general public. If he, as a member of the general public, benefits, that's not a conflict. But if it's a benefit just to him, that'd be a different story.
Point of information.
So when this ordinance was initially brought to the ordinance committee, it was brought by Cody Bertram, who was your planning and zoning department head at that time. Then it was through multiple ordinance committees, with Mr. Rutt being here for one of those, tabled for more information. Then in that process, Mr. Bertram resigned, Ms. Luce started, and there was a list of many ordinances that were not finished, that were tabled in that process of Cody leaving, this being one of them. This was brought back to the ordinance committee in order to close out some items, not by any one individual council member. And that I can show you through the minutes of those ordinance committees.
Okay, the motion on the table is to exclude Councilman Clint for a conflict of interest on old business item number 1.
Mr. Mayor.
We will do a roll call
A yes vote will be
To exclude.
Exclude. Okay, thank you.
and make it a conflict.
Correct.
Councilman Hockett,
No.
Councilman Sprinkle,
Yes.
Councilman Frank,
Yes.
Councilman Clay,
No.
Councilman Schramm.
No,
The noes have it. This motion will fail 3-2 for a conflict of interest on old business item number 1.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman
can I
Klein.
make a motion to suspend the rules and move to number 1 and vote on it?
We have to approve the agenda.
Oh, I
And
thought
then
we did.
we're still working on the conflict, but I want to make sure that we approve both agendas before I have you suspend rules. Council, are there any other conflicts? Hearing none, Chair will move on to this evening's consent agenda. Council, having had time to review your packets, is there a motion on the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second to this motion?
Second.
Councilman Clunt has made a motion to approve the consent agenda. That motion has been seconded by Councilman Hockett. Floor is open to comment or question.
Comments?
Comment?
I really missed the paper because I like scribbling while we're going along. That's my comment.
Thank you. Any other comments? Hearing none, Chair will call the question. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it, and the consent agenda is passed unanimously 6-0. Council, having had time to review your packets, is there a motion on this evening's agenda?
Mr. Mayor, I'd make a motion to approve the agenda.
Is there a second to this motion?
I'll second that.
Councilman Clay has made a motion to approve this agenda. That motion's been seconded by Councilman Clunt. Are there any comment or questions? Hearing none, Chair will call the question. All those in favor of approving the agenda, would you please say aye?
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it, and the motion to approve the agenda passes unanimously 6-0. Are you going to make a motion to suspend the rules?
Yeah. I will make a motion to suspend the rules and move to item number 1 under old business.
Is there a second to this motion?
I'll second. I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Clunt has made a motion to suspend the rules and move to old business item number 1. That motion has been seconded by Councilman Clay. Comments or questions?
Mr. Mayor, I think this might not be the best idea because we're going to forego any public input
That's,
that may have been concerning this issue, and I would recommend that we not do that.
any other comment?
I agree with Brad.
Okay.
I think it should be maybe tabled for 2 weeks to let the public aware, because
The motion, all this motion is doing is moving this item from old business ahead of Board of Adjustments, public hearings, department reports, and public input and communications.
Yeah.
So Councilman Schramm's point is that if we approve to suspend the rules and move this to the front ahead of those, that may exclude input from the public tonight. So,
Councilman Schramm has a fair point, but I'm just
Yeah.
curious why you wanted to move it.
Just tired of hearing about it.
Okay, all right.
any other comment?
what's the benefit we're going to get from this, changing this ordinance?
We're not going to discuss it until we
Yes,
have a motion
okay.
or a second on that. This is to suspend the rules and move this to the front. Hearing no other input, the motion on the table is to suspend the rules and move old business item number 1 to the front of the agenda. We will do a roll call vote. Councilman Hockett,
No.
Councilman Sprinkle.
No.
Councilman Frank.
No.
Councilman Clay.
No.
Councilman Schramm.
No,
Councilman Clunt.
No.
The nays have it. This motion fails unanimously 6-0. Moving on. Tonight, we move to recognition of visitors and communications. As with all meetings, we make public input available for a 10-minute window. If there's no people here, you can speak the entire 10-minute time. If it's a group, there can be one representative that chooses to take the time, or you can use the 2 minutes. Is there any public input? And if there is, would you please come to the podium?
34 years of being on fire and rescue, I believe over the years, and 18-some years on the council, ordinances are put into effect because of a cause. And the effect is the ordinance to stop. I don't believe we want to open up and change this ordinance and have a stack here, a stack there, park here, park there. It ends up on the streets. Besides a volatile material that can burn immediately, it also brings in mice, rats, spiders, whatever you want to bring in. I've added that on my lots. And I'm just saying is that where these bales are located down on North Main, they're near or under power lines. You can shut off power to essential businesses in our community. You propose a smoke damage that you're sitting here saying it's okay. If I were to buy that building on North Main, the elevator, can I run it down? No.
Nope.
Because of the smoke and heat damage to the neighboring properties. That's why I'm saying I would not approve or change this ordinance because of the safety. And I have nothing against Austin, I have nothing against Jamie. I'm just saying the man has plenty of land to put his bales other than strategically underneath power lines or near buildings that are all.
John, have you read the new ordinance? It says it can't be under a power line and it's got to be so far away from a building.
But why would you bring them to town?
Well, that's what you're dwelling on. I'm just wondering, have you read it?
I haven't read all that ordinance.
Okay.
What I'm just saying is we have an ordinance in place to keep bales and things like that from getting in our community. I'm looking at that smoke in July 4th, that building started on fire down at Cologne, it's still smoldering today. I just worry about local people, the smoke damage, and things that are going on. And this is why we don't burn down houses in our community, we don't burn down elevators, and that there's a lot of volatility to our community. And I would just ask that you not change this ordinance. Thank you.
Is there any other public input tonight?
Now can I ask the question?
Not until we have a motion. Moving on to communications with no further public input. Tonight, the city finance officer will go ahead with fuel bids for the previous 2-week period.
Fuel bids for July 5th. Number 2 dyed diesel, Volun Oil. Number 1 dyed diesel, Volun Oil. Regular unleaded, Volun Oil. Propane, Schaefer. Fuel oil, Volun Oil. Fuel bids for 7/12. Number 2 dyed diesel, Schaefer. Number 1 dyed diesel, Volun Oil. Regular unleaded, Schaefer. Propane, Schaefer. Fuel oil, Schaefer.
The next communication from the city of Winter will be on new hires from the Human Resource Department, and that will come from our finance officer, Chandra Phillips.
There's been 1 new hire in the previous 2 weeks, and that is for Mackenzie Bachman at $19.65 per hour in the dispatch department with full-time benefits and 6-month probation.
That concludes recognition of visitors and communications from the city of Winter. City of Winter now moves on to department reports. Our first department report tonight will come from the Public Safety Commissioner, Justin Day.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So to start off this evening, we will start with the Communication Center. For the month between June 19th to July 16th, there were 2,200 incidents entered into CAD. 953 were 911 calls, and then just under 4,300 were administrative calls. We had 2 interviews since our last council meeting, and then as Chandra stated, we made 1 hire in Mackenzie Bachman. Switching over to the next page, that will be again from June 19th to July 16th. These are the calls that came in for the Winter Police Department. You can take a look at those and what they're all separated into. You can see that there were a total of 543 for that time period. Next page will be for the 911 center as a whole, and that's where we got those 2,200 calls that came in for all the agencies that we contract with. Switching over to the Winter Police Department, Feeding South Dakota was held at the 4-H grounds again on Friday, July 7th. Another good turnout. It's pretty standard every time we have that. There's a lot of people that show up for that. And then we will be doing the next one on August 4th. Officer Fitzgerald is nearly finished with his field training, and Officer Connett has completed his 8 weeks up until this point, and he goes to week 12 before he is off FTO. We did a building clearing and active shooter training in-house on July 12th. Worked with another local organization in Winter that lets us use their facility, come in and train, and then they show up and get to be actors in this and help everybody train for certain things that we may encounter here in town. And then the PD will continue to have an increased presence in the construction zone, and officers have been conducting numerous traffic stops throughout all areas of the community, and citations are being issued. Over to corrections. Our inmate population today is 168. We are averaging 167 for the month, and we're at 159 for the year. Our June billing just for the jail was $359,569. Transports were another just over $14,600. If you look at your financial statement there, you will see a huge number in the expenses column. That was where we made our large payout to Direct Technologies. Just a heads up, next month, we will also see that $700,000 transfer coming out of there, so we're not actually spending that much, it was just transferred out to another department. The 24/7 program, we still have 27 participants total, 12 being on the daily PBTs, 5 are doing the UAs, 1 is on Scram Bracelet, and then 9 are through that Hope Court program where they come in and do UAs. And then as far as what's going on in the jail, we continue to do interviews and continuing to get applications and scheduling for those interviews. Any questions?
I guess I have a comment, Justin. I really appreciate the presence through the construction zone and all the traffic stops, but I just want to make sure it's the certified officers writing the speeding citations, because uncertified officers are not allowed to be writing citations.
They are writing as they're allowed to do, because when they're still on FTO, they have a certified officer with them. So, yep.
Any other question or comment? Thank you, Justin. Our next report is from Public Works Director Troy Kruger.
Start with water and sewer. Adam Street, water main replacement's done. Lamro, we had to dig up a sewer main, repair that, it collapsed. We have HydroClean in this week and last week, they'll be back. They are camering sewers to do a lining project, and we're also doing the rehab on 5 manholes. Locates mainly for the highway project, monthly water samples and readings. They're starting to install some of the radios for our new read system on the water side, replacing bad meter heads that are coming up, and getting the installation done. Fixed water main leak at McDonald's Park. Wells 13 and 14, we're done with the maintenance out there. We had some bad suction pipe, and number 13 had a bad pump, cavitated to the point where it was no longer pumping efficiently, so we had them replace that. Working daily with the highway contractors. We are probably getting pretty close to being done with what the city has for their portion of the project. When they switch over to the north side of the highway, there'll be tie-ins at the intersections, but for the most part, we're 90% done with the city's portion of that project, so that's coming. That'll be nice. We had a water main leak on Oak Street, and they just did their yearly maintenance out of the lagoons and the wells. Streets and sanitation, we had a new hire start. Blaine Wetsit started at $18.85 an hour. He'll be on 6-month probation with benefits. Sweeping, worked on the berry pit at the landfill. digging out our main pit. It's getting smaller every day, so still planning at sometime this year to get a bigger piece of equipment out there and start working on a new pit. We're just running, it's starting to fill up. Our street signs finally arrived from 2021 doing the highway project. They took down our old white and black signs, so we ordered new signs to match the signs that got replaced in 2021, and those signs are starting to show up now. So most of those signs were on the highway from Main Street east, and so the guys are getting those signs up. And then there were some around town that just never got replaced, but took a long time to get those signs. Hauled recycled to the transfer station, fixed up an area down there to put our dumpsters and totes on. Recycle in the alleyways that have washed out. We've had some rain. Hauled city dumpsters from Heartland Waste out to our yard. We are done with the switch over. On sanitation side, dumpsters have been switched out. Totes have been switched out. We have taken back what's ours. They have taken back what's theirs. So that project's pretty much complete. Normal dump operation and then normal transfer station and recycling operation. Parks and cemetery, mowing, trimming trees, city park from the winter kill, trying to get some of those trees out of there. They took some trees out on Main Street that died, sprayed cemetery, working on graves. I purchased those guys a new sod cutter for their Ventrec mower, and we're gonna get into the, what's gonna become our new operation out there is to cut sod off of some of the newer parts of the cemetery. And then that's what we'll fill in the grave sites with instead of the seeding. The seeding just does not seem to work out there with the watering and the weather. I don't know what it is, but the grass just, we have enough complaints from the public. They like to see those grass on them as soon as they can. So we're going to try this with the sod cutting and replacing what we take off them. We'll just put it back on with the sod cutter. So as soon as that we're done with the burial and they're able to get in there, we'll cut the sod off. We'll lay it aside. When it's done, we'll put the sod back on. They're finished up the ball field, softball, up at the softball complex. The backstop is up, and I believe they've played a game on that field. It looks really nice. It was a nice, that's a good project. I'm excited to see if we get the grant, or if we don't get the grant, we're going to go forward with replacing the backstops down there at Bailey's complex and get all those fields looking a little better. But excited to see that project go forward. We've got a couple ball tournaments coming up at Leahy Bowl, so the guys are getting ready for those. And they've also been working in the bathrooms. We've had some vandalism in our bathrooms. So I don't understand why, but we've had some bathrooms that have just been destroyed and sinks torn off the walls, plumbing beat up, toilets broken, doors kicked in, just never, list goes on and on. So Marty and the guys are constantly fixing those bathrooms. Light department, we've had several power outages in the last 30 days. I guess most of them are due to fuses blowing. Some of them are a couple of critters got into the power lines, but kind of been odd. Had just one the other night. They finished at the underground up at McDonald's Park. That's all tied in. Everything's cut over. The pool, the playhouse, all that stuff is down. The low lines up there are down. Everything's underground up there. Now they've switched over to the north part of town. They're up there by Tripp Avenue, and they're going to be they're working on two big projects up there. One is going east and west from the new addition all the way out to the highway. The next one will be from the entrance into the Tree Street area all the way up to Tripp Avenue, and that is some bigger wire, and that's a bigger project. So hoping to complete that yet this year, but we'd like to get all that underground before the snow flies. They're also working on deploying more meters, and everyone's been budgeting, so that takes up a lot of the supervisors' times. They're getting numbers on equipment and trying to project numbers on salaries and personal services for the upcoming 2024, so that's taken up a lot of the supervisors' times. Ray has been working on the time clock deal for the new payroll system. He's this new meter installation is Ray's got training to do, but we're also finding things out in the field when we're going to put these meters in. So we're working through those issues. We're changing out some that we can change out. We're also working with, we have, in some cases where the electrical is what Craig or Kurt or Ray believe, maybe something's not right or not up to code, so then we've had some of those issues. So we're working through some of those. It's time consuming. Ray's also working in getting the load management portion of the project going. And so he's installing a couple of load management systems throughout town, and we're putting those through a series of tests to make sure that when we're putting them in correctly and that we're doing it so that it's coming up and it's a program on the Landis and Gear side that we use, and just making sure everything's working correctly there. He's done a couple small field other projects. He's working on some controlling lights up at McDonald's Field and a couple other small projects. But any questions? Jeremy?
McDonald's Park, is that Grant holding that work up on that, or?
Nope. Nope, that was just asked to be funded by the city.
Okay, so are we still waiting for sod on that, or what's the problem?
Yep.
Is that all the stuff now sod on that, or?
Sprinkler system is done. Marty needs to get in there and do a little more leveling, get the weeds out of there, and then when he can get a delivery of sod, it's ready to go.
Okay.
Just waiting on the sod.
Second question. Accidentally, I drove past Adams Street today where they're doing the miscellaneous concrete work. Are we purposely putting square curbs back in there? What it looked like to me.
So that's contracted service that DB got. We hired them to do the curb. This year, that's a budgeted for item, the curb and gutter. We try to do a block or two every year. He's putting up forms. So it is a little more squarish than a normal curb. It is what it is. It is what it is. It's the way he's doing it. It's a little more square, yes. It looks good as far as the final product, but yes, you're right. It is a little more square than some of the curbs in town. That front edge has got a more square than a rounded top. But it's a 36-inch curb. Everything else is up to exactly what we called for in our specs on it.
Okay.
Anyone else? Just a quick note to the public. In the next coming weeks, we will be crack sealing around town. So we ask for your patience and try and go around us. We're going to do a block at a time. We'll try and, keep the people that live on the streets get through. We'll crack seal, we'll roll the toilet paper over, and we'll get it so that that you can drive on it. But if you can go around us, go around us. We've got a lot of streets to go through and a lot of crack sealing to do. So it's going to be probably a 2 or 3 week project, and we'll be working at it. I also got a call last week from Bituminous. They're going to be doing the shoulder out here on Highway 18 from Winter to Cologne. So they're interested in coming to Winter, or they're interested in doing our streets. We have like 27 streets that we're going to do this year. And they're interested in doing those maybe as soon as the end of July, first week in August. So that might be another project. Be aware that it's coming up, and have patience with us. We'll be milling and overlaying streets, and roads will be blocked off, streets will be blocked off. So try and work with us as best you can. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Our final report tonight is from the Finance Officer, Chandra Phillips.
Mainly been working on budget, finding cash balance, getting debt services, getting personal services, and then working on my individual departments as well. That's been taking quite a bit of our time, but the other big portion of our time that's been going on is the executive time. I gave personnel committee this morning a pretty extensive rundown of where we're at with it. We do go live with it on Sunday the 23rd, which is just a few days away. We have some contingencies out there for us in case it doesn't work, because there have been a few issues. The computer system works fine. Now that we've got all the test system and everything done, it's just we're having some issues with the time clocks. So we're hopeful that once we're live on the 23rd, shouldn't have any more issues with the time clocks. Been doing quite a bit of trainings with individual departments, showing them how to approve employees underneath of them and making sure that the chain of command structure is in there. Utility billing has been working on the water meter upgrade and making sure that the meters that they're installing are coming across into our billing system correctly. And it seems to be, when I look at the email from her and Brenda, it seems to be that it's working correctly. Sanitation, you will notice that your bills will look different commercial-wise beginning August 1st. So we are 2 months behind in our utility billing. So several people were calling last month saying, hey, I have this now, not this. Why is it showing on my bill? Well, you won't see the change until the August 1st bill. So if you went from a 2-yard to a 43 or 300 gallon, you'll see that difference on the August 1st bill. It will actually say 300 gallon, 2-yard, 2-yard extra. So it's going to tell you on your commercial accounts what you actually have. If you're a residential customer that has something other than the tote, and let's say you're a commercial customer that has a 300 gallon, it will say 300 gallon on there as well. So we have built that all in there so that we now know a better idea of what our inventory should be, and going from there. It's been a very good learning curve for us in the office to know things. And I think the only piece that we're truly missing right now is just to get the full schedule on those accounts to know that they're Monday, Tuesday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. There's several different ones. There's probably 50 accounts out of the 275 commercial accounts that are on multiple pickups. So it won't take us long to get that. We just have to schedule a time with Adam to sit down and get it filled out. With that being said, there was a couple questions that came through my office on the grant for sanitation, and I wanted to reiterate, we did not get turned down for the grant. The grant informed us that there was not enough funding for our project this time and that we should reapply in January. We have the opportunity to reapply. I did speak directly to the state and to District 3, and they said the same thing that I told you guys 2 weeks ago. Yes, we can reapply. No, yes, it would have hurt us had they awarded any bit of that $96,000 that was remaining, because then we would have been out completely. That would have been our project funded. Obviously, we had a lot more than $96,000. We applied for $999,000. January 1st is when they get their biggest source and when they award the biggest amount of grants. So there are several things that we will be working on to reapply. The $200,000 that we have in payments, different things like that. So we will have an application that can go forth to this grant again. We were not denied. There was just not enough funding. Bailey's grant, where we are at with that. We approved, or had the county approve an easement with us. NPS said, not good enough, try again. So we went back to the county and did another easement that they approved to do with us. And now we're crossing our fingers, hoping that NPS says yes. For those of you who don't know, NPS is National Park Services. So we were approved for the Bailey's grant at the local state level. And then what the state level does is they refer you up to the federal level, which is NPS. NPS has the ultimate final say. If you don't meet NPS standards, doesn't matter that the state approved you, they would turn you down at that point in time. So I got the signed copy over to Randy today. He said he's crossing his fingers for us too, that they accept the easement. Both DGR and city attorney have reviewed it, and the county attorney reviewed it. So we're very hopeful that this will be good enough. The FEMA grant, we are closing this out this week. There were 3 separate jobs on the FEMA grant that came from the snowstorm that happened at the end of December. One of them was for emergency measures, so there was a full 48-hour period, which means I could use, in our example, I used the evening of a Wednesday, all day Thursday, and all day Friday. or excuse me, and then the majority of Friday for that 48 hours that we could use all of our overtime and all of our equipment during that time. Then any emergency call-outs that we had, which we were able to utilize the dispatch center, and any overtime that was accumulated because of emergency call-outs, which would be the flights, the just helping out. So all of those calls that came through dispatch, we were able to utilize that and get another hour to 2 hours for some of those, depending on how dispatch reports came in. So total, and then the second project was utility poles or infrastructure. So we had 2 utility poles that went down because of the storm. They replaced those, and then there was also some fuses that went out because of trees in the lines, and they replaced those, so we were able to get their hours, not just overtime, but regular time, their equipment usage, and the materials reimbursed. And then there was also the debris cleanup. So all of the trees that fell down were on lines, all of that went on. There was a full week that the city, I think that according to Kelly, that was the majority of our citywide cleanup this year, was cleaning up trees and branches, and we were able to get reimbursed for that. So the 3 separate things individually, we're looking at approximately $85,000 to be reimbursed back to the city from FEMA. 2 have already gone through. We're closing out the final one, just had to get some fringe benefits in there. So that is going well. We were awarded an ARPA grant through the airport for $32,000 back in 2021, and I was able to get everything finalized on that and submitted for $18,000 worth of reimbursements, just waiting on the reimbursement from the state on that one. The ARPA grant for 2020 that we opted as a council to use towards the water sewer highway project, it's coming due. We have to have it spent by a certain amount of time, which is not going to be a problem. We'll get it spent, but the documentation for that was all due in the last month, and so we had to submit a bunch of invoices for that, and it's looking like everything's going well there. The $450,000 payment that you see in your claims tonight to Tripp County, that will not actually be to Tripp County. It'll be to the new closing company. Is that, or to the bank? Anyways, if you buy something through the closing company, you have to have a money order. So that's ultimately what it'll be. I think it'll be to First Fidelity Bank so that we can get the money order. And we will hold on to that and not write it until we have a closing date scheduled, which we're working with the new closing company to get that date scheduled. But we didn't want to not have the authority to write the check and they call us tomorrow and say, hey, you can close today. So we did put it on the agenda or onto the claims list so that we could get it done as soon as the closing company will allow us to. Other than that, working on insurance renewals too. It is that time of year where our insurance renews September 1st, and tomorrow is my deadline to get it renewed and still get the discounts that we get. So, questions?
Council, comment or question? Thank you, Chandra.
Everything, Mr.
That concludes department reports for the City of Winter. There were no bid openings in the previous 2-week period, so the City of Winter now moves on to public hearings. Tonight there's one public hearing. It's an application for an on-off malt beverage South Dakota wine license at Dollar General. Is there any public input for this hearing on this application? Hearing none. Any point of information?
Sure. Everything has been turned in. This was one that did not get their information in on time for just a renewal. So then we had to go through the process of a new application. But everything has now been received.
Council, is there a motion on this application
I'll make the motion
to approve?
to approve it.
Is there a second to that motion?
A second.
Councilman Sprinkle has made a motion to approve the application for the on-off malt beverage South Dakota farm wine license at Dollar General. That motion has been seconded by Councilman Clunt. Floor is open to comment or question, council. Hearing none, chair will call the question. All those in favor of approving the application for the on-off malt beverage South Dakota farm wine license at Dollar General, would you please say aye?
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it, and this motion will carry unanimously to approve. That concludes public hearings. There are no Board of Adjustments for this July 17th meeting. City of Winter moves on to old business. Council, there's one item to be considered under old business. Is there a motion on this item?
I'll make a motion to approve second reading for passage and approval, ordinance 1056, and ordinance amending 150-033, amending the restrictions of stacking hay.
Is there a second to this motion?
Second.
Councilman Clunt has made a motion to place on second reading for passage and approval ordinance 1056. This is an ordinance amending City Code 150.033, amending the restrictions on stacking of hay. That motion has been seconded by Councilman Hockett. Floor is open to comment or question. Councilman Clunt, you have the motion. You have first option. Any comment or question?
I just want people to know that you can put corn, other commodities on the ground that can burn and smolder for weeks on end, just like hay. And there's nothing saying you can't do that. The co-op did it for years. They had a pit down there. I mean, it's no different than a grain that can sit there and burn. And it's zoned ag industrial, I believe.
That is
what it
correct.
is? So, I just truly feel that hay is ag.
Councilman Hockett.
Yeah, I want to commend the ordinance committee. I thought this was when this whole flap came up, I drove down and I looked. And to me, I looked at it and it was a rural setting. It's right way out there on the edge of town. You've got tractors, big equipment like Jamie runs. You've got grain elevators sitting there, and you've got this. To me, it looked natural and normal. It didn't look out of place for me. And I'm glad that the ordinance committee looked at this, and to me, they came up with an equitable solution that was livable. And I liked it, and that's why I seconded this. I really don't have a problem with it.
Council, the floor is open. Comment or question?
I was reading over the way you've got it, the ordinance wrote up. It says, stacked bale material may not be kept under any overhead, primary, or distributed electrical lines. It doesn't state how far away they can be.
Not that I see in there.
And then it's, also you've got in there, small square bales or straw or hay may be kept as part of seasonal decorations or to provide shelter and supplemental protection from weather for small animals. Now you're just opening it up to, they can say, hey, I'm using it for my dog. It's not going to solve the problem of mice, rodents coming in. I've got the issue right up by me with small bales. And the neighbors are complaining right now about the mice. You can have these bales out of there in 8 months. And I'll guarantee you're gonna have mice left. Those are my concerns, that it's a health hazard, not so much the bales as what it's gonna bring. The other health hazard is when, it's not if they catch on fire, it's when, because eventually something will happen. All that smoke's gonna go right up Main Street if the wind's out of the right direction. I would say that after seeing what happened down at Clone, that would open your guys' eyes up a little bit about this. Basically, my opinion, though.
Other comment? Councilman
I
Frank?
have a question for
Question.
Mr. Jensen. What is the legal definition of an occupied structure?
An occupied structure is a structure that is currently in use either as a place where people live or a place where people work or a place where people come and go on a regular basis.
Okay, my next question is, how many unoccupied structures are where this proposed site is? Because as the ordinance reads, it says, they may not be placed within 100 feet of any occupied structures. It never, doesn't say anything about unoccupied structures, as in the old grain mill that's down there on North Main. So, say those catch blaze and sparks fly, that old grain mill has been not in use for I don't know how many years.
There's people there every day.
It's, but it's not occupied.
He said come and go on a regular
If
basis.
they're coming and going on a regular basis, that under the law is considered occupied.
There's a
Further.
registered business there.
There's a registered business there. Further comment or question? I'm sorry, Councilman Frank.
I'm just saying, I mean, with the way the wind blows, no matter which way, you're gonna have sparks and everything coming off that fire that can spread to those very old buildings down there on Main Street. And the way fire spreads, it could take out quite a few businesses on North Main Street.
Councilman Clay or Councilman Schramm, do you have a comment?
I always have a comment. So I was on ordinance committee, I think maybe Brad and I were, when this came up, or maybe it came up before, and as finance officer had mentioned it, we didn't bury it, it just kind of got worked under and hadn't got addressed. I do like a lot of parts of this where it's providing a work through and a working relationship on the ability of it. And I'm not a longtime fireman, haven't been a fireman for a long time, but I know that hay burns hot. And I don't know how corn burns, if it just smolders, or if a pile of corn has a big flame up. And the fire down there at Clome, we all saw it. I would imagine most of us saw that thing burning. And then here just the other day, we had another fire out by Wood or something, a hay burning. So it's really made me think about the location. Nothing against anyone having business, but it really makes me think about the proximity to the city of Winter. That's what I have to say.
Councilman Schramm.
Mr. Mayor, I would entertain tabling this so that we can work on where we're gonna put those big.
Is there a second to that motion?
What was the motion?
To table?
I'll second that.
Councilman Schramm has made a motion to table. Councilman Sprinkle has seconded. I'm going to do this by a roll call.
First, second question.
There can be no
There's no
questions.
discussion.
Once,
Okay.
once the table has been proposed, it's done. To table, Councilman Clint, yes or no?
No.
Councilman Hockett? Councilman Sprinkle?
Yes.
Councilman Frank?
Yes.
Councilman Clay?
No.
Councilman Schramm?
Yes.
This motion will die to table for a lack of a majority with a 3-3 vote.
The mayor.
Discussion.
votes to
Not on ordinance.
tie. Not on this?
Cannot.
Really? All right.
Yeah. So the table, the floor is still open.
Okay.
So rebuttal now, rebuttal. Councilman Hockett? Councilman
I'd like to
Sprinkle?
know one reason why this ordinance is being changed. The one good reason.
Who are you asking?
All of you.
I think it got brought up because I think you brought it up to the code enforcement guy that didn't even know it was there because it had been being done for years. That's why, I guess.
That person got by with it for years.
Not just that
All
person,
I
several
said was,
businesses
if
did.
it's a damn ordinance, enforce it.
Question has been answered. Any rebuttal?
What benefits to the city does this have?
Councilman Clay, any final rebuttal?
A rebuttal question, rebuttal and a question?
Yeah, 30
Because
seconds.
what my question I want to say, if it gets tabled, it's already been passed and approved, it's a question for the attorney. It's already been through the first reading. If it gets tabled, does it has to come back to first reading again? That's what I want.
It does.
That was what my simple question was on that I couldn't answer.
Yes.
No, I lost the second part of it, but that's fine.
Councilman Schramm?
I thought it would be a good idea to clarify the ordinance that we had was so broad that no hay shall be stacked inside the city limits. Where the discussion then went to, I can't have a nativity scene, I can't have a lot of things that you might do. If I keep my dog outside, I can't put a hay bale in his doghouse, because no hay shall be in the city limits. So I was trying to accommodate everything. And after seeing what happened in Cologne, I'm not sure we can. Now, we can make this guy stack all his hay right on the edge of the city, because that's where he lives. Put it on your own land. But it's gonna cause the same exact problem if it's 50 feet off of the street as it is if it's in the location that he's been keeping them. So, in the interest of making things work for everybody, I really believe that if we limited it to industrial zoned areas, that would mitigate the risk of having it next to my house on Lambeau Street. So, I have not received not one comment from my constituents saying, Brad, that's a good idea, we need to put that hay in town. Okay, and based on that, I've had my mind changed from allowing that to happen from when I first started on this. And it's been 2 sessions of my serving on the committee. Just like Jeremy said, when it first got brought up, now he's gone and somebody else is on it. I really think we need to revisit it. And because there are some good things in this that we have changed, along with this bail ordinance, I wouldn't mind giving the committee one more chance to bring something that might pass.
All right. Everybody's had a chance to comment and rebuttal. This time, we will do a roll call vote on second reading for passage and approval of ordinance 1056, an ordinance amending 150.033, amending the restrictions on stacking of hay in Winter, South Dakota. Chair will implement a roll call vote. Councilman Hockett.
Yes.
Councilman Sprinkle.
No.
Councilman Frank.
No.
Councilman Clay.
No.
Councilman Schramm.
No,
Councilman Klein.
Yes.
The nays have it. This ordinance will not go on second reading for passage and approval due to a 2-4 vote. 4-2, I should say, nay. That concludes old business. And as per Councilman Schramm's comments, this can come back up in ordinance and be revisited, and it looks like it possibly will with some of these ideas in there, possibly a reworkage. Maybe it doesn't. We'll see what committee brings. City of Winter moves on to new business at this time. Item number 1 on new business. Council, is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd make a motion to place on first reading ordinance 1057, an ordinance amending sections 153.075 through 153.999 to amend certain requirements for new developers.
Is there a second to this motion?
I'll second that.
Councilman Schramm has made a motion to place on first reading ordinance 1057, an ordinance amending sections 153.075 through 153.999 to amend certain requirements for new developers in the city of Winter. That motion has been seconded by Councilman Klunt, and the floor is open to comment or question.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Jensen.
I
Point
should
of
just,
information.
a point of information for council to understand where we're at. This entire ordinance was in front of council recently, and it was tabled and sent back to correct one item. And that was with regard to, under section 153.077, first page of this, you will see the green highlighting now, which says we struck the words 4 inches of paving and instead put in with a permanent surface paving as determined by the city. There were concerns, I think legitimate concerns about that 4-inch in case concrete was used instead of asphalt. So that correction has now been made. It comes back to you for another first reading with that change because it's technically a new ordinance. Otherwise, everything is exactly the same as it was when it was in front of council before.
Any other comment or question? Hearing none, chair calls the question. All those in favor of placing on first reading ordinance 1057, would you please say aye?
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it, and this motion passes unanimously 6-0. Item number 2, council, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve first reading of ordinance 1058 and ordinance amending the revising certain provisions relating to the operation of the city cemetery.
Is there a second to this motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd second that motion.
Councilman Clunt has made a motion to place on first reading ordinance 1058 and ordinance amending the revising certain provisions relating to the operation of the Winter Cemetery. That motion has been seconded by Councilman Schramm. Floor is open to comment or question.
Mr. Mayor?
Point of information.
For council's edification on this, the ordinance in front of you proposes to change the entire chapter of the ordinances which currently cover the cemetery, not because we're changing so much of what was there, but because we're adding to clarify some things that between our cemetery crew and with the finance office, there are things that everybody in those departments felt like we needed to fill in some blanks and put in some more additional information in the ordinances for the sake of public understanding what's being done and how it's being done. So most of this you will actually see is some new sections to the ordinance. I won't waste everybody's time going through them line by line, but I would just indicate to you that most of this, as I say, is new information. We've tried to clarify things that, number one, may have been, quote, the way we've done it, but it wasn't in the ordinance. And so if anybody challenged it, it would have left open a question of.
Mr. Jensen, I noticed that it looks like we're proposing to change, I don't know what the correct term would be, all bodily burials will be required to be in a vault, not just adult burials, it's all bodily burials, right?
Correct. Back at the time when this was written, it was questioned as to whether or not there even were vaults available for some of these infant size and things like that. To the information that I've been able to gather, there is no such thing as too small of a size to get a vault for now. Vaults are available, and it's the standard by which most municipal and privately run cemeteries operate.
Council, is there any other comment or question? Hearing none, Chair will call the question. All those in favor of placing on first reading ordinance 1058, would you please say aye?
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it, and this motion is on first reading by a unanimous 6-0 vote. Item number 3. Council, is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd move to put on first reading ordinance number 1059, an ordinance amending certain requirements within the Winter Code of Ordinances for modular homes and manufactured homes.
Is there a second to this motion?
I'll second that.
Councilman Schramm has made a motion to place on first reading ordinance 1059, an ordinance amending certain requirements within the city Winter Code of Ordinances for modular homes and manufactured homes. That motion has been seconded by Councilman Clunt. Floor is open to comment or question.
Mr. Mayor.
Point of information.
for council's purposes, I would just want to make you aware that the crux of this ordinance is to clarify, number one, that no modular or manufactured home will be considered anymore as being a permissive use within any of the residential zoned areas. If a modular home is going to be considered in, for instance, an R2 or an R1, R2 residential area zoned, it's going to be only as a,
Conditional.
thank you, a conditional use, meaning that it's going to give the planning commission and this council the ability to take steps. If you're going to approve it, it has to have certain steps to make it so that it really becomes part of and compatible with the rest of the neighborhood. Under our current ordinance, that wasn't always the case. Some of these were going to be permissive use where they could just walk in, get the building permit and go sign it and away they go. And so that was the number one impetus of trying to clarify this, was to make it so that for any of the modulars, it'll go through the conditional use permit before it's going to come into your residential areas. For your manufactured homes, they will no longer be eligible even for a conditional use in the residential areas. They will be authorized for use within the mobile home districts that are zoned for mobile homes, manufactured homes, and that's where they will go. And so that's really the crux of it. We've tried to also to establish the appropriate standards, whether it be for roofing, for the type of siding, so that you don't have something sitting in a residential area, zoned residential, that has corrugated steel roofing, things like that. So this is going to impose on all of these homes a standard gabled roof with a 12-3 pitch. It's going to impose your normal requirements as far as the type of materials. Again, going to that issue of, is it compatible with the community, with the neighborhood where it's going to be sitting? So that's the crux of what this ordinance is proposing.
Mr. Mayor, if
Councilman Clay.
possible, I would like to hear from Councilman Sprinkler and Councilman Hockett's opinion on this, as they both served a long time on the planning and zoning commissions.
Councilman Sprinkle, I'll allow you the floor first. You didn't
ahead,
smile or laugh as Councilman Hockett did after that comment, so I'll give you first point of information.
I don't see any other than making sure they're anchored down and if something that's not gonna rot around the skirting. That was our big issue before. They just put plywood or whatever and it rotted away. Well, down the road, it 5 years, looked like heck. Nothing we could do about it. And then we changed that to a put block, because at one time they had to be on a basement or a 4-foot foundation. And that was kind of overkill on a lot of it. Right?
Councilman Hockett.
I like the idea that there's more oversight by the planning and zoning and the city council to make these, conceivably look more compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. And I like that aspect of having just a touch more oversight. Can it still happen? Yes, but it's gotta do it this way. It can't be this other way. So I like it. I think it,
Blend in better with the rest of the,
So basically, you two are recommending that we vote in support of this.
I'm
correct?
gonna vote to support this.
Okay, that's what
What you do is up to you, Mr. Clay.
I just want your recommendation. Thank
Any
you.
other comments?
you're just trying to put us on the hook.
I know it was, that's what it does.
Any other comments? Hearing none, Chair will call the question. All those in favor of placing on first reading ordinance 1059, would you please say aye?
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it, and this motion is passed unanimously, carries unanimously 6-0. Item number 4, council, is there a motion?
Make a motion to approve first reading of ordinance 1060, 2023 supplemental budget ordinance for the for the waters and sanitation funds.
Is there a second to this motion?
I'd second that, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Clunt has made a motion to place on first reading ordinance 1060, a 2023 supplemental budget ordinance for water sanitation funds. That motion has been seconded by Councilman Schramm. Any comments or question?
Mr. Mayor and Council.
Point of information.
You, in your 2023 budget, did put aside $100,000 in the water fund to be transferred over to the general fund. With review of the general fund revenues and where they're coming in at, I do not believe we will need that $100,000 to go to the general fund. There is another piece of equipment that needs to be purchased for sanitation, and so in order to do that, since we did not receive the grant, this was a simplified action that you could, as council, take to move that money rather than to the general fund, move it to the sanitation fund, and not hurt the water fund.
Comment or question? Hearing none. Chair will call the question. All those in favor of placing on first reading ordinance 1060, the 2023 supplemental budget ordinance, would you please say aye?
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it, and this motion carries unanimously 6-0. Item number 5, council, is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd be glad to make the motion, but I don't know what the dollar amount is to fill in there. I don't have it written down anywhere on here, and I was just scanning through.
Dollar amount.
Yeah, we never received an agreement we don't have an agreement or an amount to present to council on this item.
For RDO.
It's a G60 mini excavator.
Price.
Down here from RDO in out of Rapid City in the amount of $92,000.
Thank you.
How much, please?
You still have to have the contract to approve it.
$92,000.
So you still have to be given the authority to approve the contract.
Mr. Mayor, I'd make a motion to enter into a Sourcewell purchase agreement with RDO for $92,000 to purchase a mini excavator for the sanitation department.
Is there a second to this motion?
Second.
Councilman Clay has made a motion to enter into a Sourcewell purchase agreement with RDO for $92,000 to purchase a mini excavator for the sanitation department. That motion has been seconded by Councilman Hockett. Floor is open to comment or question.
Mr. Mayor, do we have a contract agreement for our viewing?
There is no contract agreement, and I've heard the discussion at this point, and I will defer to Mr. Jensen on this. But this is through a purchasing agency. This is a Sourcewell agreement. This is not, what's that?
It's outside of the budget. This is not currently budgeted for. So
It does
it's
not
outside the
matter.
budget.
It comes down to his bottom line,
It'll fall over bottom line.
not with the transfer that just happened.
I'm sorry, but I can't hear the
Yes,
questions.
you have to bring that up publicly.
So my concern with it, and I would defer to Mr. Jensen as well. It has not been budgeted to buy the $92,000. That is the equipment. That is ultimately why you're moving that $100,000 so that his fund can afford to purchase it. So it is outside of your current budget. The reason we had it on tonight's agenda was to get the cheaper value for it. If you motioned as council to have the mayor sign this purchase agreement outside of the budget line, then we could get it for a cheaper price versus waiting for the supplemental budget to go through first reading, second reading, passage and approval, then you're an additional $6,000 more. So there is a purchase agreement coming with a Sourcewell contract in my history that I have seen.
And I have not seen it, and I just looked back through my emails, I don't see one there. I will tell you that from the standpoint of where we're at, the only thing that's stopping us from acting, or at least the only thing that I'm telling you is going to put up the cautionary flag on council's part, is the fact that we don't have a written contract. However, if the amount that is being put forth here is the accurate amount that we need to spend for, then under this circumstance, you can certainly pass a motion to purchase it for that amount. If it requires us to come back with a contract, though, we're gonna have to come back the next time with the contract to get that approved.
And
So
the
I-
reason we need this mini excavator is,
At the sanitation, we're loading the trucks. Can I speak?
Yes, comment.
Okay. All right, our sanitation committee, we've got like a payloader out at the landfill, and they run that back and forth to, the garbage trucks come in and they dump it on the floor, and the payloaders load it into the truck. They've determined a mini excavator will do a better job of compacting the trash and filling a fuller to maximize the loads going to Puckwana, and also prevent having to run that thing back and forth all the time from the landfill to that location. Does that answer your question, Councilman Schmidt?
pretty much,
Councilman Hockett.
Bradley, the benefit that the city would get from this is approximately 5,000 more pounds per load, per loaded container full going to the Puckwana landfill. They figured that it's gonna be about, make that big of a difference. Each and every load, they can put another 2.5 ton on. They can't right now with what we have, they cannot fill the front part of that because of the length of it and the size of the building and all that. So I mean, it would be a good investment for the city in my view.
I question really the purchase price will be more or less than exactly $92,000.
Well,
I'm guessing that's what Troy went to get.
Yeah.
My question is, if it's 92,000, why don't we transfer 92,000 instead of leaving this $8,000 for whatever?
It's just buying it outright.
So that,
only because the committee was presented with 100. We never knew anything about 92.
What my thoughts are is you transfer what they
What you
need,
need.
what you need. The other is just free to spend if you do that way.
I'm sorry, Councilman Klein.
I just think you transfer the cost, not an extra $8,000.
So the discussion and the point of information that's being discussed here on the side is discussion was happening out there. The $100,000 is transferred into the budget. He has the spending authority to go make that purchase. There is no contract if it's not a down payment plus a purchase later. This would just be because of a Sourcewell contract, he has the authority to buy from a Sourcewell contract. There's no down payment. He can go sign the agreement and purchase this, present purchase order for the amount. It's through Sourcewell, and the funding's in there, and he hasn't went over his budget. To me, this item in
Non-essential at this time?
non-essential at this, it's not a council decision. You've made your decision on item number 4 to transfer the funds into that department.
Mr. Mayor, I see that Troy just brought a copy of some documentation, and I wonder if we might have a couple minutes so we can review that.
it's less than 92.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Clay.
can we have a recess?
Yes, there's a motion to take a recess? Is there a second to that motion?
10 minutes.
All in favor of taking a 10-minute recess, would you please say aye?
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. We'll take a 10-minute recess.
This is exactly what we need. But see, the dollar amount changes. We just saved a little money. $91,890.
don't just love sitting.
That's the purchase agreement.
So if I remember correctly, the reason 100,000 was asked for is because they've gone over in quite a few of their other lines to get that air compressor up and running.
Oh.
He needed the full 100,000 in order to purchase this and keep from going over his bottom line. So the original purpose that we had talked about putting this on here is technically he cannot purchase it until the budget has been amended. Budget is not officially amended till after first reading, second reading, and 20 days publication. If he wanted to sign an agreement that we would purchase it but not pay for it until 35 plus days went by.
I'm just trying to recall, Chandra, and you help me out here. I don't recall what the discussion was when we were in committee. Did he indicate that they were okay with waiting for their money? They just needed a signature?
According to Troy on Friday at Cabinet, they were okay with waiting. They just needed a signature that the city would purchase.
Okay.
I'm just pissed off, I'm just unhappy with the speed of it.
Anytime there's a John Deere, we've always had the mayor sign it.
Oh, I understand, and that's exactly what I just told him, was that,
I know he doesn't like it.
well, he's wanting to treat it like we're walking in and buying something off the shelf, and that's fine.
More than and then especially.
But see, this, if nothing else, this defines what it is we're getting, including serial number, et cetera, et cetera. What the auxiliary attachments and all of that. But the other thing, like you said, and I'm looking at the fine print here. Like you say, if they will allow us to accept, give them the contract now, but take payment after we've got that budget in place, which, like you say, this was just first reading tonight.
Because that's the ultimate problem. And again, the fact that it would get referred is pretty slim to none, but it is still referable.
Correct.
So if we write a check before it is officially
You gotta wait. You gotta wait, there's no question.
correct.
Yeah.
Now, if we waited until this ordinance was all said and done, I would actually agree that, I don't like it, but I would agree that we could just put this into the minutes versus motioning on it.
We could.
And I thought we were all in agreement that the reason we were putting it on tonight was because of the simple fact of it is not in budget right now to be purchased.
Yep, I gotcha.
Because when we initially talked about it with Jody and Troy, that was the plan. And that's why it's
We
on
didn't
there.
have this on Friday.
No, I asked him for it and he said he didn't have it.
So
So he told me he would have it to me on Monday.
it apparently came in today and we spurred the memories, because here we got it, but you or I didn't get it, so. At least we haven't gone crazy with that. Correct me if I'm wrong now, we were just having the discussion about what we talked about Friday. As long as we sign the agreement, he's okay with waiting for the money. And he knows how long he's gotta wait.
Same deal. Me too.
Well, it's more than that.
So it'll be the 27th of August before he could get it, so it'd be September before he'd get a check. You don't have another meeting until August 7th. And then it'll be published on the 29th, and so 20 days after the 9th.
Yeah.
9th.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he wouldn't get a check until the 5th of September.
Almost skip. And then, the public on the 29th, and so 20 days after the 9th. So, yeah, he wouldn't get a check until the 5th of September.
I mean, that's where we're at. We can certainly, now that we've got the contract, we can approve it, if that's what everybody wants to do.
You're gonna get yourself hurt.
On that
Jeremy,
basis.
take care of my light.
Chandra, is there any way you can stop this from shutting?
If I knew how, I would do it to mine too.
I'm
I'm
sitting there
sure, I
constantly.
know that there is a way, because I know I've done it before, but I'm gonna have to have my kids show me how, because I'm just too
It
dumb.
goes to sleep, and then I'm like, okay, I can go to sleep too then, huh?
Well, yeah, I changed mine, and now it's under settings, and it's under power. Something in settings, power,
Something, yeah.
but I don't remember now. That part I did find. Because mine was, like say, it was going to sleep in 20 seconds or something.
Well, every time I look down, it'll start going dark.
Did,
I gotta
yeah, I know.
touch it, and then she'll come back.
See, now, I've been sitting here for how long, and mine's still active.
Oh, really?
And I haven't touched it for, what, 10 minutes now?
Fix it.
Certainly
Mine goes
5.
off in a minute or two if I don't touch the
That's
screen.
what
I gotta
mine
have
is.
her fix that.
We should at least pay.
But
You got the same, you got the good one then.
It's not the.
Well, Ron,
I know how to-
They can set the timer on. Can you set the timer on ours for us?
Businesses there.
If I can remember how I did it, sure.
Well, you sucker, you're like a tech guru to me, in my eyes, you're a tech guru.
For a grant.
Jody, we've got the contract, so we can do it
That's not even a qualified.
on the basis of what was
Go to settings, so
discussed.
you figure out where the hell it's at.
Because
Did you do it?
Well, I was trying to find
How do
settings.
you get the
this
settings?
basically is what they needed to lock it in, was the contract. We don't have to pay for it until after our ordinance that we just did first reading on actually goes into effect. Then we can pay for it.
Don't even need council approval because it's through Sourcewell. There's no down payment.
Screens are better, but.
Let's remember what Sourcewell does for us.
For them is.
It gives us the lowest
Settings.
available price, so you don't have to go out for
So
bid.
you don't have to go out for bids.
Screen time.
That's the name of the game.
Did you
yeah.
find it?
Yep.
But
How
the
far
fact that
down?
we don't have to go out for bids doesn't change the fact that we still have to either pay cash or else have a
Yeah.
contract to buy it.
So is this a is this a multi-month contract?
No,
No. So he's buying it in cash,
we're buying it
his
and,
budget authority,
and he.
no down payment.
And he, no down payment. We pay for it when we get the money here in a month and a half.
One day.
So we can do that.
Yeah, all he needed to do is take and present this PO, and once the piece of equipment is here.
Well, generally.
Yeah, because he's under 100,000. He could have, yeah.
It's Sourcewell and it's under 100,000.
You only got so much.
He didn't even need to bring this, it just needed to 100% have the piece of equipment here.
Yeah, we're so used to these things being over 100,000 that we never, yeah, you're right, you're right.
Right.
Troy, never give Troy that much authority, though. God almighty, he'll go buy more equipment.
I have to give him, you, Justin, Chandra, and DGR all that authority. And I don't, the South Dakota legislature.
I know.
So, we are back in session. As a point of information, this is a contract, it's not even a contract. So we can't make payment on anything. It will simply go on the claims list. Once the piece of equipment is here, it's under $100,000, which is under the bid laws. It's within his budget authority, but that piece of equipment has got to be here, and it will be seen on the claims list when it arises. My point of information,
Except,
go ahead, Mr. Denson.
except Troy does not have the authority to sign a contract that binds the city. And the council can approve that.
I asked, as a point of information, what contract is there?
This is a contract to purchase the piece of equipment. It identifies the piece of equipment, it identifies it by serial number, price, et cetera. It identifies attachments that go with it and the total purchase price.
So when we make a purchase for $20,000 worth of supplies from corrections from one of our suppliers, we'll sign a contract, it's within their budget authority.
True.
And they just submit the claim with the City of Winter purchase order. The claim, this is no different than buying $30,000 in supplies for corrections.
The only difference in this case is the fact that the dealer, in order to hold and offer it at this price,
Requesting a contract.
wants the city to sign a contract that locks us in so that he can still provide us with this price. If we were willing to wait and go take whatever the price was when we've got the money available, that would be a different story. But that wasn't, not what he and Troy had negotiated. Am I wrong, Chandra?
That was how I understood it in talking with Troy as well. That he was willing to wait till after the supplemental budget went through to receive payment on it. So that we could get I believe it was $6,000 cheaper price.
All right. Are we recommending a table? What's your recommendation?
Since we have it, if the attorney approves what it says, I would say you could absolutely approve it for $91,890.48.
That's what I'm waiting for, is the exact number that contract says. 91.
91,890.48.
Mr. Hockett, will you amend your motion?
And I agree that from a legal standpoint, we can do it under these circumstances.
Yes.
And then I'll amend my second.
Gotcha.
You were the motion, he was the
You're the
second.
Oh, I was my
I'm still curious why
motion.
we're
I forgot, I'm
transferring
sorry.
more than the cost.
Then I will amend my motion to include the exact dollar amount of $91,890.48.
And I second that.
Okay.
And I'd like to know Austin's question.
No, Austin.
My question is just why we're transferring more than the cost of the machine.
I didn't know the cost of the machine at the time when I originally did it. It was not, I mean, we just received that today. I didn't have an official cost. So the 100,000 is what was budgeted.
Wasn't there some additional things that needed to be covered besides this?
Potentially, there could be some more additional things because in the original budget, as you guys are aware, when we set the budget for 2023, it was with the city owning all the equipment and everything and the city doing it. Obviously, we've gone a different direction from what that original budget was, which means that we have a contractor now that we pay approximately $220,000 to over the next 6 months, which is not in your budget either, but will be covered throughout. But this $8,000 over would be beneficial to help cover that cost into the other contractor too.
Did that answer your question, Councilman Klein? Councilman Schramm?
I just wanted to hear what his question was.
Gotcha. All right. Council, there is a motion from Councilman Hockett.
Sorry.
Oh, it was from Councilman Clay to enter into a Sourcewell purchase agreement with RDO for $91,890.48 to purchase a mini excavator for the sanitation department. That motion has been seconded by Councilman Hockett. Chair will implement a roll call vote. Councilman Sprinkle.
Yes.
Councilman Frank.
Yes.
Councilman Clay.
Yes.
Councilman Schramm.
Aye.
Councilman Klein.
Yes.
And Councilman Hockett.
Aye.
The ayes have it, this motion will pass unanimously 6-0. Item number 6. Council, is there a motion?
This one shouldn't take a lot of discussion. I'd make a motion to approve resolution 2023-15, setting rates at the cemetery.
Is there a second to this motion?
I'll second.
Councilman Schramm has made a motion to place, to approve resolution 2023-15, a resolution setting rates at the cemetery. A motion has been seconded by Councilman Clunt. Floor is open to comment or question.
I might make note that we did not include an automatic yearly increase for that stupid CPI crap.
That's Without the commentary, I will agree there is no CPI provision in here.
Any other comment?
If I may, there is no change at all in the rates. These are the current rates that we have. We just extended it into a resolution versus ordinance.
All we're doing is changing how we set the rates.
Correct.
Okay.
I would just remind council that part of the discussion as this whole review of the ordinances started, there was a reminder that other than a couple of items, it had been many, many years since most of these rates were reviewed. And so council might be well advised to at least think about whether these rates are sufficient or if you want to get some input for the road down. But for right now, these are exactly what is contained in the ordinance.
Any other comment or question? Hearing none, Chair will call the question by a roll call vote. Councilman Frank?
Yes.
Councilman Clay?
Yes.
Councilman Schram?
Aye.
Councilman Klein?
Yes.
Councilman Hockett?
Aye.
Councilman Sprinkle?
Yeah.
Ayes have it. This motion will pass unanimously 6-0. Item number 7. Council, is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd make a motion to transfer $100,000 from contingency to streets equipment for the sole purpose of purchasing a used dump truck.
Is there a second to this motion?
Second that motion.
Councilman Clay has made a motion to transfer $100,000 from contingency to the streets equipment line for the sole purpose of purchasing a used dump truck. The motion has been seconded by Councilman Hockett. Floor is open to comment or question.
So, Councilman Schram,
What?
you remember a year ago?
Yep.
Okay,
You told him you weren't gonna buy him a dump truck, but now you.
last year.
Okay.
Last year. I said, sorry, I gotta take it for your budget. And you can,
No, you can't cross talk.
okay,
You can
so
make a
I'll
comment.
talk this way. So, Councilman Schram and I were on the streets department and the dump truck was in dire need of repair. It was determined by the powers that be that it was beyond repair. So we pulled out of the service and we, the committee, instructed them to start looking for a truck. And then I, the committee, said, sorry, I had to take it from your budget and not buying a truck last year. But we need a truck pretty bad. There's multiple of uses. And so it was tying their hands pretty hard, not being able to shop for a truck without, you know, the whole use. You find one and then you come back and we bid it through and we accept it, it's gone. So I said, hey, I'll propose it that we transfer $100,000 and I requested that we tie it explicitly to the purchase of a used dump truck. If we don't do that, it's not to be used for paving a street. So that's what I would say about that.
Any other comment?
That's a good explanation.
Other comment or question?
Would you like me to explain the contingency?
They're gonna get rid of the one that's not usable then?
It's just sitting out the yard.
Or are they gonna get rid of it?
It's junk.
It would be scrap at best.
Okay.
It has over 1 million miles on it. Multiple issues. It's not a safety drive anymore.
They pulled it out of service over a year ago. Pulled it off insurance, pulled the keys.
And we entered into agreements
It's a
to
part.
rent a truck when we needed it instead of trying to fix that one that's not fixable.
Other comment or question? Hearing none, Chair will call the question by a roll call vote. Councilman Clay?
Yes.
Councilman Schram?
Yes.
Councilman Klein?
Yes.
Councilman Hockett?
Aye.
Councilman Sprinkle?
Yes.
And Councilman Frank?
Yes.
The ayes have it, and this motion will pass unanimously 6-0. Item number 8. Council, is there a motion?
I'll make the motion amending the wages of Justin Dowling to $30.98 an hour for completing their year 2 books and 5,441 hours in electrical department.
Is there a second to this motion?
Second.
Councilman Sprinkle has made a motion to amend the wages of Justin Dowling to $30.98 an hour for completing their Year 2 books and 5,441 hours in the electrical department. The motion has been seconded by Councilman Frank. Floor is open to comments or question. Hearing none, Chair will call the question. All those in favor of amending the wages of Justin Dowling to $30.98 an hour, would you please say aye?
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it, and this motion will pass unanimously 6-0. Item number 9, is there a motion, council?
Mr. Mayor, I'd make a motion to amend the wages of Logan Krieger to $34.95 for completing their 7 books, I think it was.
Year 3.
And,
Year 4.
three books, and completing 6,466 hours. Did I mention the wage, $34.95?
Yes, you did, sir. Is there a second to this motion?
I'll second that.
Councilman Clay has made a motion to amend the wages of Logan Krieger to $34.95 an hour for completing their Year 3 books and 6,466 hours. Councilman Sprinkle had the second. Floor is open to comment or question. Hearing none, Chair will call the question. All those in favor of amending the wages of Logan Krieger to $34.95 an hour, would you please say aye?
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it, and this motion will pass unanimously 6-0. Item 10, council, is there a motion?
I will make a motion to approve the addendum to the county guard hour contracts beginning January 2024.
Is there a second to this motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd second that.
Councilman Hockett has made a motion to approve the addendum to the county guard hour contracts beginning January of 2024. Councilman Schramm has the second on the motion. Floor is open to comment or question.
Mr. Mayor,
Point of information.
just to clarify so everybody understands, this only affects the guard hours that are charged to the counties when we provide guards for transport or going to court with their prisoners, things like that. And what it does is it doesn't change the rate other than it puts it on the CPI adjustment every year, starting with the CPI adjustment January of this coming year and then the following year after that.
Any comment or question? Hearing none.
Brad, did you get the ball rolling on this one?
I'm sorry,
Did you get the ball rolling on this one?
I heard the explanation. I'm going to refrain from comment.
Oh, yeah. Hearing no further comment or questions, Chair will call the question by a roll call vote. Councilman Schramm.
Aye.
Councilman Clunt.
Yes.
Councilman Hockett.
Aye.
Councilman Sprinkle.
Yeah.
Councilman Frank.
Yes.
And Councilman Clay.
Aye.
The ayes have it. This motion will carry unanimously 6-0.
Mr. Mayor, if I might, is it not true that if we don't want to implement a raise, we can vote not to
On the contracts.
on any of these agreements?
Well,
Are you talking CPI?
the contract is there, you can certainly move to change it back.
Thank you very much.
Item number 11. Council, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to authorize the mayor to request an increase in the CDBG grant agreement 2021-105 percentage for the Highway 18 Utilities project from the current 42.6% to 58.3%, and an extension in completion date to December 31st, 2023.
Is there a second to this motion?
Second.
Councilman Clunt has made a motion to authorize the mayor to request an increase in the CDBG grant agreement 2021-105 percentage for the Highway 18 utility projects from the current 42.6% to 58.3%, and an extension and completion date to December 31st, 2023. Councilman Hockett, did you have the second?
Yes.
Yes. Is there comment or question on this motion, council?
Mr. Mayor.
Point of information?
So every time we do a pay request for this Highway 18 utility project, I submit it then back to District 3, who is ultimately the grant manager for the CDBG. And we work very closely together, keeping track of how many CDBG funds we've requested. When we initially applied for the grant, it was looking to be a $1.7 million project. At that time, when the bids came in, and it came in at 1.39, and that's with contingencies built in. Now that we're nearing completion of the project, it's very clear that our portion of it is not going to hit the full 1.7. We may not even hit the full 1.39. So CDBG is typically a 42.6% match, or a maximum of $770,000. Because when the initial cost estimates came in, they gave us the 42.6% match with a max of 770. So bringing DGR and Troy in on this, then there was a couple different questions, and we brought this to a committee as well. Do we try to find an additional $450,000 to get an additional $200,000 in grants, or do we ask for the grants folks to allow us to get a bigger percentage in? After several conversations with Troy, DGR, myself and the mayor, it was determined that let's see if they'll give us more so that we can get the full percentage rather than trying to spend more money. So District 3 did then ask if they would consider that. They said yes, but they need the council to approve the mayor to submit the official documentation on it, so.
Any other further question or comment?
We should try and do that every time.
Yes, we should. Hearing none, Chair will call the question by a roll call vote. Councilman Clunt?
Yes.
Councilman Hockett?
Aye.
Councilman Sprinkle?
Aye.
Councilman Frank?
Yes.
Councilman Clay?
Yes.
And Councilman Schramm?
Aye.
The ayes have it. This motion will pass unanimously 6-0. Item number 12, council, is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the pay request number 11 for PCM X05H in the amount of $24,707.98 to Reed Construction.
Is there a second to this motion?
Second.
Councilman Frank has made a motion to approve pay request number 11 for PCN X05H in the amount of $24,707.98 to Reedy Construction. That motion has been seconded by Councilman Hockett. Floor is open to comment or question. Hearing none, Chair calls the question. All those in favor of approving pay request number 11, would you please say aye?
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it, and this motion carries unanimously 6-0. Item number 13, is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I haven't seen that agreement.
It was not included in on your packets when it should have been.
Okay, so I have a hard time making a motion to approve something I haven't seen.
Yep.
Can we put it on later?
I'd like to circulate the motion. Is the document here?
I can get it for you really fast.
Oh, yeah, she's got it. I think between her and I, we've somehow failed to get it into the packet, but we both have it.
At this time, if you'd like to move on to item number 14.
I'll make a motion to pay the claims.
With the addition of the pay request number 1?
Yeah.
That's very important. That would have been pointed out. Is there a second to that motion?
Sure, I'll second that motion.
On item number 14, Councilman Clunt has made a motion to pay the claims for the City of Winter, including pay request number 11. I believe that is it. That motion has been seconded by Councilman Clay. Floor is open to comments or questions. Hearing none, Chair will call the question. All those in favor of paying the claims for the City of Winter, including pay request number 11, would you please say aye?
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. That motion carries unanimously, 6-0. This time, we'll wait on that agreement. I believe there is general public that has waited here the entire time to hear for a decision from council.
On the roller skating?
On the ice rink.
Ice skating rink?
Ice rink.
Who's the donation from?
Dan.
Yeah.
And you are?
Steve Stein.
Steve Sagan?
No. Actually, it'd be a great article for you,
Yes.
Mr. Bechtold.
Yes, it would be.
Yeah, because now we can start an ice hockey team.
Brad.
Where is that?
Item 14, Chandra, was a motion to pay the claims with pay request number
Fastest printer
11.
in the West.
And
Right,
I
Chandra?
can look online to see.
And that was,
You must have the fastest printer in the West.
Well,
See, now, they asked me to go down there first, we could wait 10 more minutes.
Still hot.
packet
Yeah.
in order for it.
Item number 13. Council, is there a motion? And then we can open, motion in a second, and then we'll open it up to discussion.
I'll make a motion to approve the donation agreement for the outdoor skating rink.
Is there a second to the
I'll
motion?
second that.
I'll
Council-
second that.
Councilman Clunt has made the motion to approve the donation agreement for the outdoor skating rink. That motion has been seconded by Councilman Sprinkle. Floor is open to comment or question or point of information from the.
Point of
don-
information.
Go ahead, sir.
Point of information.
If you'd like to go to the podium, Steve.
Yeah, I want to hear from you.
Yeah, I grew up in Mitchell as a young boy playing hockey. I started at the age of 5 to 6 years old. How we started was we just flooded a baseball diamond, and that's how it started. And next thing you know, we're building an indoor rink. I played through that all the way through high school. After I had left, this rink which I'm donating to the city of Winter, they had put that out in front of the ice rink. The South Dakota Hockey Association said, here's this rink, set it up. They had that one out front until the city of Winter city of Mitchell had built a second additional indoor rink.
Are you foreshadowing there
What's that?
with that comment about the city of Winter?
So hockey was a big part of my life, and I've been taking my kid over to Mitchell ice skating, and I've made a lot of memories on the ice, and I would like to see our community make them memories also.
What
So-
is it? I'm not a hockey guy. I'm not a skater. I couldn't stand up on ice.
Okay.
Is it a structure you put around and you flood water in it or something?
Correct. So the person I could find the most information from about this ice rink or the boards was Jeremy Nielsen from over in Mitchell. He said what they did is they took a 50 by 100 foot silage tarp, laid it out, they set up the boards on top of it, and then you flood the rink in layers.
Steve, how thick is that, like 6 inches or whatever?
Less. So if you really want to get technical with ice, is actually the thinner you make it, the better. So you want to find the most level spot you can. Reason is when you make thinner ice, it creates hard ice, which makes faster ice. So you can skate faster, the puck moves faster, and
Fall down easier.
no. We could pick up curling. You could just, slide that little stone across the ice.
Only the first year. The second year, you quit falling down.
Because you don't go back on.
Well, I think it's a great idea, but I just wanted to see what we were gonna
Absolutely
obligate
understood.
ourselves to. I can see Winter having an ice hockey team and competing with towns across South Dakota.
What's the matter?
I got grandkids that play hockey, and you guys are gonna love it when we have it here in winter.
Yeah, if it takes off, it'll explode. And it'll be tournaments every weekend. I mean, it's a blast.
Jeremy's #1 player.
And it'll bring a lot of money to the city of Winter.
Especially when we get an indoor hockey rink, and that'll bring people to winter. Yep.
I have a question for you, Mr. Stanky.
Okay.
You and Mr. Jensen, you originally submitted an agreement to the city of Winter that has been amended by the city attorney. Today, the two of you visited. Are you satisfied with this document as it's being presented to council?
I guess this is the first time I've seen the paper. Since we kind of talked on the phone.
Not have it sitting in front of me as we were talking.
I think we should give him a minute to read it.
Yes, I agree. Thank you, Councilman.
Oh, my name's on this thing. I'd make a motion that we approve this purchase.
Oh,
Hey, we're still waiting. Slow down.
Well, it doesn't have any penalties in it if we don't live up to painting the boards, so I'm really good with this.
While he's reading, I might just tell council that as we talked, and of course I was thinking back to what he had originally submitted last week that I had started looking at. The #1 concern that he expressed was that he doesn't want this to be forgotten about, placed off in the weeds and forget about it. And of course, I explained to him the process that the city has to go through if we're ever going to not keep it, if we're gonna wanna try to get rid of it, so to speak. There's a process we have to go through. We can't just agree which it was, his original proposal was. If we go through a few years without using it, he wanted it back. And I said, we can't. I said, we can't agree to that.
Okay.
Because of the laws in South Dakota. And I tried to briefly explain that to him. But what I assured him was this. He said, if you find that rink is sitting off in the weeds somewhere for the next 2 or 3 years, you raise the issue with your council, I guarantee something will get done, if nothing else, to bring it out and give you an opportunity to get it back through the process that we would have to go through.
Yeah.
And that was what I told him today, because that was his biggest concern. Obviously, there's, as any person that's donating a piece of recreational equipment, he would like the city to abscond him from, absolve him from any liability, which is a fair deal. I did that by this agreement as well.
Thank you. This looks good to me.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
I think you'll find it'll be a good investment for the city.
Council, we have a motion and a second. Are there any other comments or questions? Hearing none, Chair will call the question by a roll call vote. Councilman Hockett.
Aye.
Councilman Sprinkle.
Aye.
Councilman Frank.
Yes.
Councilman Clay.
Yes.
Councilman Schramm.
Aye.
And Councilman Clint.
Yes.
Now, can you donate us to Zamboni?
I was working on it, but we were a day late to Other Shore. Spearfish just started their own hockey team, so they bought the Zamboni that Mitchell has for sale.
There you go.
This motion is approved unanimously 6-0. There are no executive sessions for this evening. Council, is there,
The dentists will get busier.
We're not quite done
is
yet.
there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Councilman Sprinkle has made a motion to adjourn. Councilman Frank has seconded at 8:36 PM. All in favor of adjourning, would you please say aye?
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it, and this motion carries unanimously 6-0.